So basically, I would want your insights about product management as a domain since you've pursued your 1 year PGPM program at SOIL. So, the first question that I would like to break into is before Microsoft, what did your career trajectory look like?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for this opportunity. I'm really happy to have this conversation with the students in Soil, and yeah, so it's a journey. Before even doing my MBA, I was primarily I'm basically coming from a mechanical engineering background. I did my undergrad in Coimbatore, and I was primarily into this production management experience. I'm basically an hardcore mechanical engineer, and then post which I always had this aspiration of pursuing MBA from premier institutes like Soil, and that's when I ended up in Soil. Had this opportunity to kind of pursue my management program, but always I never thought of in my wildest dreams that I will end up in a career in product management. But
Definitely.
uh, but it's a journey. That's how I look at it. In my last 10 years of experience, especially after my postgraduate program, I slowly transitioned from a more of an user persona into a consulting persona and then into a product management domain. I think it's all about what's your skill, and it's all about what is that you're really passionate about. What do you like doing it in your day-to-day job, and that's how I ended up in this product management role. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for your answer. So, the next question that I have for you is that if I shadowed you for 1 week at Soil, what would I actually see? Who would I actually see? Like, please talk about your classes, the projects, any kind of placement preparation that you were a part of, anything that helped you to stand apart and, just like be unique in the crowd.
Yeah, I think that's really a good question. Makes me feel nostalgic. But yeah, I think I would say especially the projects, the faculty interactions which we have in Soil, and also the opportunities which you get, especially in Soil, the NGO interactions, the internship programs, and your retreat programs, and also the projects like the capstone, which gives you an hands-on experience, right? And if you ask me what really helped, I think it definitely, I will once again go visit back and say that the faculty interactions, both the on-campus interactions and the off-campus interactions. We have this mentorship program, which also really helped me in terms of kind of getting that personal connect and also getting my queries resolved in Soil. But which really helped me is like the especially the people crew, because the peer-to-peer learning is always the one which I strongly believe in, and which really helped me in excelling in my program during the MBA and even after that, because we tend to have this connection post MBA as well. I think that peer-to-peer learning is something which I always cherish, and also you get enough opportunities. I was actively contributing for placements. I was actively involved in dramatics. I was actively involved in the some of the research projects. I think that's really kind of, because in your PG program, all your mistakes are not looked at as a failures, but that's a platform which Soil kind of offers you in terms of committing to whatever you wanted to do, and you're free to make mistakes, right? You cannot do that in the corporate world. And one thing which I really value is my mistakes are always kind of encouraged by the program itself, and I really loved this peer-to-peer learning. I think that's what it is, and that's what brought me to where I am here right now.
So, what made you choose the PGPM program over the PGDM course?
It's I would say it's more of a situational choice. It's never been like I've never thought about like I wanted to do this program, that more of a focused approach towards this. So, but one thing is, of course, I always believed in experience and expertise, because with your experience comes your expertise, and my time was very limited at that time, and I wanted to kind of quickly come up with this MBA program, because I always believe that the MBA provides you with the right frameworks and the methodologies, and of course that is definitely you have to work on, you are building your skills and competencies. But that's when I decided like I have to pursue with the limited constraints what I had in terms of the time and the amount of effort which I can put in. That's when I decided I will pursue the PGPM program. It's not a conscious call, but it's more of a situational choice. Yeah.
I understand, totally. So my next question would be that you've been into operations consulting and now you're doing product management at Microsoft. So what are the two to three turning points in your career that sort of shaped your career trajectory to where you are today?
Yeah, so it's like I would say it's a very crazy story. Like it's more of like it's like once again like it's more of you need to always focus on like what works well for you in the next 1 or 2 years. Of course, we are living in a very what we call as VUCA world. Like it's very volatile and uncertain, and you cannot decide something over 5, 10 years what could possibly happen. But I always believed in what works for me in the next 1 or 2 years. That's what I always believed in. I always never had any vision of what am I going, whom am I going to be in the next 10 years or maybe next 15 years. So especially looking at my career graph, at least like I said earlier, I started off as a production engineer. So I have to handle the day-to-day operations for an automotive spare parts supply, and I had a hardcore production management experience. And then followed by I was also working with TVS as an automotive supply relationship manager, handling the warehouse management, your inventory management, and your production control, and distribution management. And post which I got this opportunity of consulting Deloitte. That was also more of a forced call because of COVID reasons. I wanted to make a switch at that time, and that was also like not a conscious decision. But I was happy that I took that call. I was able to get into the consulting experience for ERP related profile, and then that actually ended up in with me in the career in Microsoft. But throughout this journey, what actually was happening is I was building my domain expertise, and I was also building my ERP exposure, which was really a gray area for me, which was primarily an unknown and unknown to me itself. And when I was keep on changing my careers, looking out for job opportunities, I was consciously or unconsciously I was building this expertise of ERP knowledge and domain expertise, which actually helped me in ending up in a product role in Microsoft. So that's where I said that you have to be conscious on your decisions with respect to at least for next 1 or 2 years. You cannot really envision for what you really where you want to position yourself in the next 5 years or 10 years. But at least you should make those conscious decisions in terms of the next 1 year what you want to look like, next 2 years how you want to look like. I think that will really help you in your long-term goal.
Okay, sir, I understand. So, sir, now I would like to dive into like the present times. Like, how has your product management journey been at Microsoft lately? Anything that you would want to share with the students?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'll be happy to share. Like, this is like really very interesting and dynamic. Even the role of the product management itself is very dynamic. We have to live in constant chaos and change management. And but the three things which I really love with Microsoft way of doing things is primarily like the Microsoft way of doing things is like you ship fast, you fail fast, and you iterate faster. So so you constantly get into this loop of doing things repeatedly, and you have to kind of make sure that you drive enough clarity towards whatever the product which you are working on. And as a product manager, you have to kind of generate the energy, and because as a product manager, you have to work across the stakeholders, and bringing that collaboration is very important. You have to kind of, I would say, it will really test your grit. When I say grit, it's more of doing consistently a certain thing over a period of time despite challenges. And it will really test your collaboration in terms of with your engineering, with your sales, with your design, and all these team stakeholders. You have to constantly collaborate and reiterate your product. That's how you can build your product. And of course, like I said earlier, like you cannot build a product that lasts for 10 years. You have to constantly
Keep
iterate,
upgrading it.
keep on upgrading it. That's how you can build sustainable products. So that's what really excites me in the journey currently with Microsoft.
So, if somebody, let's say, wants to take up product management as their career, let's say we are in an MBA college right now, and I would want to be a product manager at some point in my life. So, what are the some few skill sets, soft skills, hard skills that we should absolutely imbibe in ourselves in order to become a successful product manager sometime in the future, just like yourself?
Yeah, I think I would still say like I am not as successful. Like I have a long journey to go. But yeah, at least from my experience, what I will strongly recommend is it's all, if you look at the soft skills aspect of it, like I said earlier, the more of the collaboration and then prioritizing things, and also how you generally we tend to write our to-do list. It's also important to write down our not to-do list as well. We have to start saying no to many things, and if you can do that with a smile and also with respect, I think that will go a long way down in the product management career. And most important, like I said earlier, it's also important for you to remain consistent, and you have to develop your grit, which is very important in the product management role. I'm talking about like any technical skills. I will strongly recommend you have to identify it, because it's more of an individual choice. I kind of the I would say this inflection point, or the enabler for me is like I always build this ERP experience. I never thought that I will be ending up in a product role in an ERP, but you have to identify what is that core skill which you wanted to primarily build on, and it varies from individual to individual. But primarily, you need to kind of have this big picture rather than a small picture view. You have to have this big picture view. I think which is very important. I've seen product leaders who can easily kind of go scale up to 10,000 square foot view to like 100 square foot view. I think I have experienced with such a kind of great inspiration leaders, and it all comes from your experience. It cannot come in like 2 to 4 years of experience, but it takes time. So I think that's what something which I strongly believe in.
Thank you so much for your insight, sir. So my next question would be that most of the students, we kind of tend to romanticize PM as a domain, that we would want to work as a product manager. So what are some of the misconceptions that uh, we students have that you would like to bust myths about?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. At least from my experience, based on the interviews, what I had, and at least my interactions with the students, what I have understood is two main misconceptions which I have seen. Like one is, first of all, MBA is not a prerequisite. People believe that MBA is a prerequisite to get into any product management role, but it is actually not. At least like the people with whom I have interacted with the mid-level or senior mid-level managers, I have seen that people are coming from typically some high profile B schools. But if I really look at the leaders at the corporate level, I have not seen like majority of them coming from some major B schools doing their MBA. They have this great customer obsession, like how do you solve the customer problems, how do you solve the user problems. That is very important. And end of the day, if you are able to excel in that, your MBAs are always taking a back seat. So MBA is not a prerequisite. You have to be obsessed with the customers. You have your grounding on the customer and user experience, which will take you a long way in the product management role. I think that will be the first point. And the second thing will be like I believe that even if I look at my peers and with the professionals with whom I am engaged, most of them are not actually from technical background. You do not have to kind of come from a CS or IT background in order to excel really in the product management role. Even if you look at my profile, I come from mechanical engineering background, and all you have to do is build your expertise, drive drive the clarity, prioritize things, and you have to kind of understand and work with the team which can work smarter, faster, and better than you. If you can able to identify those things, I think that's more than enough. So MBA is not a prerequisite, and of course, you do not necessarily need to come from a technical background. You just have to find out the people who can do a job better than you. That's important.
Absolutely. So I think we have a preconceived notion that you absolutely need to be from a tech background to be able to work at a Google or a Microsoft and have those hard skills. But thank you so much for busting this, sir. Uh, Next question would be, if you had to rank what matters most when you're hiring for product management: strategy, analytics, execution, and communication. So what would be the order? I repeat: strategy,
Okay.
analytics, execution, and communication. If you could just rank.
Um, yeah. I would say like all of these are important, but first and foremost, I would say is the communication, which is very important. It's not about the fluency of English, which is definitely not the case, but you have to communicate across the stakeholders. You have to communicate internally and you have to communicate externally, and your communication plays a very vital role. And that's how you can get the feedbacks. You can start strategizing things. It can help you in terms of analyzing whatever the feedbacks which you have with the customers or even with your internal team, your engineering or design team as well. So communication plays a major role, and it also kind of tags back to our previous answer. Like you also have to have the ability to say no to different things. It also takes a lot of courage and respect in order to kind of communicate back to say that we cannot prioritize, because we cannot prioritize everything any of the development or concern. You have to start prioritizing things. So that's where it comes to communication as a very important thing. So that will definitely prioritize as number one. And second thing is obviously strategizing in terms of what are the things you want to do. If once you decide on what are your priorities, what are your priorities in terms of the list of items which you wanted to start doing, then you have to strategize how you want to primarily deliver, what problem you are primarily trying to solve. Is it really worth doing that effort versus impact in terms of what amount of effort? Is it a less effort, high impact job? Or is it a high effort, low impact, more of a delivery? So you have to kind of have those you have to strategize those, and based on which you have to take it up. And followed by, I would say, like the execution part. Of course, execution and the stuff also comes in, but these two are very important according to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now the most awaited question. What would a typical day for you look like as a product manager at Microsoft? What are you spending time on, meetings, writing data, stakeholders? Any
Yeah.
kind of insights that you would want to give us about your life, like a daily life at
Yeah,
Microsoft?
yeah. Daily life is really like I said, it's a very dynamic work life which we have, and I would say like it typically looks like on three buckets. I would say the first one is primarily like we call it as the fundamentals, like in terms of taking care of our existing customers. Generally, I tend to have interactions with our strategic customers. Of course, it's not possible to have interaction with all of our customers, but we tend to identify those strategic customers with whom we constantly interact, and we try to understand the existing pain points and what are the key customer escalations which we have. We try to kind of address those along with engineering and design. So that will always takes the first seat in terms of taking care of our existing customers, which we call it as fundamentals. And followed by, we also focus on building the product. Like what are once we understood the feedbacks from the customers, we always need to kind of prioritize our list of items which we wanted to kind of address in our product. Like what are the gap areas exist, and what are the portfolio which we need to build. And that's where, as a product manager, we need to constantly work on building the roadmap, building our backlogs. What are the list of items which we wanted to deliver? So that's the second thing which we primarily focus on. And the third thing is obviously more of like constantly, like in my day-to-day work, I always try to find at least like maybe 60 to 90 minutes of time in terms of kind of uh, kind of upskilling myself, I would say. Like which is very important, because you cannot sit back and relax. Like, okay, you have reached a career goal, and you have to kind of constantly keep on doing the same thing. And then, like, typically I spend like 60 to 90 minutes in a day in terms of building my own skills, upskilling and reskilling skills, which is very important, and which I also do more of right now from AI and other perspective, which is now buzzing in the market, and which is also important for us in the next maybe I would say at least 5 years
If
from
you
now.
could name a few skills.
Skills, I would say, like first of all, it of course it varies from the individuals to individuals, but at least from my domain, like I always focus on like building the ERP later. Like I can primarily work on the supply chain related areas, like your procurement management, inventory management, warehouse management, because I primarily come from the ERP background. So it varies from individual to individual, but I constantly work on building my skills related to the ERP, and that's how you can kind of start contributing back to your engineering team. You act as a voice for the customer. Only when you build that expertise, you will be able to kind of drive that enough clarity, start prioritizing things, and you will be able to deliver appropriate solutions to the customers. So that is very important. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your valuable insights, sir. That would be the end of all questions that I have for you.